outside of enterprise, open source it in the community, where you even remotely talk about this kind of governance, remotely have any kind of architecture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Actually, it's such a big nuance. It's actually such an, I learned, it's such a nuanced point about data governance and such. Like, so in Buzz, everything is stored as plain text in a Postgres database on the relay. And of course, some people were commenting on this in the WhatsApp channel, which is, and they're correct. It's just saved right there, plain text, including your DMs. Now, if you go to Slack world, those are encrypted at rest, and I think they're simply impossible for like an admin to view in on. So you suddenly have this angle, or many angles of like, well, are you a corporate company who cares, who needs to see all your stuff? That's great for you. Are you someone who's maybe making a product, and all of a sudden you have not millions, but all these regulations that you care about? For example, and I'm finding this out now, that if you have DMs that are in plain text without support for like a delete button from the user, so like if you go in the Buzz community, let's say the one I made, you DM him, and you don't have a delete button, in some areas it's like not legal, or it's only legal if it's if the business is classified in a certain way. And in the Buzz, by the design in Buzz is that everything is soft delete. There's no hard deletes. So like you have to also keep that in mind as a user. Like you go into any of these fucking channels, like there's no hard deletes. There's a delete button,
right?
But it's just nothing. Delete equals true. It's
yes.
So there's a roadmap piece about this thing we call Buzz Mesh, which sounded a little interesting, but also concerning maybe because they want to share GPU cycles on that.
Oh yeah. Did you try it?
No, it's not something I can try, but it's an interesting idea.
Yes.
It seems fraught with some concerns.
Yes.
I turned it on for a second, just like, what would happen? I don't know. I just wanted to see if like more menus would show up. It's I'm not gonna look for it right now, but I remember I turned it on and it immediately started downloading like a 16 gigabyte model that I didn't even ask for.
Really?
And I was like, that's not good. And it was a Gemma mod or something. So like it's like this, according to your computer specs, this model's perfect. And I just wanted to see. I don't know. I was curious. I was like, depending on the settings after you turn it on, and what appears, like maybe I'll tell everyone like, try it out. I don't know. Like, can you compute something using my GPU?
But are you computing your stuff or other people's stuff?
I think it's shared. It's shared, right? Like
sharing your GPU with a community. All the unused cycles that are available to people.
It's very interesting that they included it, I think, because it's so alpha. Like everything else is barely working, and then you throw that in there, which seems, so it's telling.
Yeah, but imagine how much compute power they just got to build out the rest of the application because of that.
Maybe I'm not sure how it's how it's distributed. I don't know.
It reminds me of this, like 25 years ago, there was a thing where you can hack a screensaver. You can. It was something like you can use the compute power from your computer to calculate some or
protein folding.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, that. So it kind of like, okay, we've got all these.
Yeah.
That was running locally. You were basically running a
locally,
on the computer
yes.
in its spare time, but this is actually sharing.
Actual
This is a little different.
But if you're sharing compute, Dave, in your community, you're not sharing it to block.
Yeah.
But like honestly, it's bullshit, isn't it? Because models' intelligence scales with the amount of memory and memory bandwidth, and personal computers don't have either of those things.
Yeah, yes.
So it's just bullshit. It's like something they can say that they're doing and look bigger, but it's not actually useful.
Well, that's what I mean. It's telling. What I'm saying is, it's not actually functionally anything, but it's politically telling. What I'm saying, in terms of Jack Dorsey, that's my read. You know what I mean? Because you're getting into
it's like virtue signaling.
Well, maybe, but I think people are running local models on
Yeah.
their computer, and some sort of MapReduce algorithm that they could use to distribute computation. I don't know, I think it'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
I agree with you on it's but I'm saying what it's doing is it's a PR thing.
Yeah.
It's like seeding this idea, this concept to you, so we're talking about it. It's not functional. It doesn't make any sense right now. But it's like, well, imagine. I mean, I think that's why it's interesting, right?
But how do we get around that, right?
It's
Like,
opening up our minds to like, imagine if it was like this. Like, imagine you weren't in Claude Code and you were doing this, right?
But it's bullshit, because you can't scale that. Like, you have the memory bandwidth thing, and then if you fix that, you still have network bandwidth and latency. You know, like,
You mean as a like hour on a MacBook or something?
like there's this
That's bullshit.
sci-fi idea that like AI can like
Yeah.
escape and spread from computer to computer and get smarter as it goes, and it's not possible
Well,
with
I
physics.
guess the thing is, if you have a spark, does it make it still bullshit or not?
I mean, it's still only going to be as useful as a Spark, which is still like bad open source models. It's not like Claude. Because you're not going to use it to program your app.
Yeah, okay, but this is edge computing then, or something like edge computing, right?
Yeah, but it's like, yes, it's going to be cheap, but is it going to be as cheap as Gemini Flash? You know, which is going to be like 10 times smarter?
Yeah, but then
So what's the
but then you
actual
have the sovereignty. You have the sovereignty question. So, you know, that's what
But
the
you
politics.
don't, because you're giving it to someone else to do. It's not sovereign.
But you
You're
have
sharing.
but you have a shared community, and then you have a network of trusted people. That's where the sovereignty comes in.
Or you have
You don't
trusted
have
companies.
singular, like, 4 entities that are, they're giants, basically, right? Like, basically what I'm saying is, if you told Jensen Huang from NVIDIA
Yeah.
that this shit's taking off, he's gonna fund the shit out of it,
Yeah.
okay? He wants a pluralistic, he wants a 1,000, 100,000 model world with edge computing everywhere, because you can sell the hardware and you can sell all that stuff, right? So let's see where this goes, because
But even if everyone has like a really good AI accelerator in their home, you're still going to be like, do I want to dumb myself down to like 10 times dumber than state of the art to code my app?
depends on who you are and depends what you're using it for. I mean,
It's
I would
kilowatt
say,
hour usage, right? If you can have your thing designed by something that uses a shitload of electricity versus have your thing designed by something that uses 80 watts, like, what do you use?
But I mean, this is the pocket computer, and it's like, why would I ever want like at some point it doesn't matter anymore. Like when people buy this phone, for all intents and purposes, when I'm using it here, like in the context of this computing device, it's already highly overpowered for like 80–90% of the people, and they have to start selling the phone on other functions, right? It's no longer about.
Well, that's not where we are with AI.
I know.
Because like you
I'm
can
just saying
say-
it's laying the groundwork for this kind of thing. I agree with you. Today, that's why, therefore, it's not that relevant today. But I'm saying it's laying this idea, and then some people might use it.
The
Yeah.
functions that you use on your phone don't scale with kilowatt hours of energy, right? AI does.
Well, I guess, okay, here's the question. If Apple, right, waits, and the models get small enough, they run, and they because they have the silicon, yeah?
Yeah.
Because someone would say, look at Apple, they totally missed the boat. But another way to look at it is like Apple's like, I'm gonna wait. I'm not gonna pour trillions of dollars into this stuff. I'm gonna wait until all this shit compresses and etc. I'm gonna have like silicone that's
When
on
that happens, you
edge.
won't need this network thing that Block's giving us anyway, because every device will be able to do it individually.
Yes, exactly. And that's what Apple will win. That's my point.
But you won't need this thing that they're selling. That's the point. Like, you need collective compute, because if it's been distilled so much that it works on a single device, we don't need to share.
Yes, but that opens this whole thing of pluralistic and edge, right? Basically, it's like if you have a model,
More
you have
effective to
100,000
Claude
models,
to
and they live
see what's
wherever
the
they
new
need to
memories
live,
of this
at
story.
whatever scale they
Keeping
need, at
monitor.
whatever compute they need, and you have
The
this
memory of
like,
what?
ecosystem, right?
I
This
mean,
is the
It's
idea.
becoming more effective
So that
towards
means that
Claude,
there are
what's taking up the
ecosystems
memory for
where
CPU,
you can just build
starting to
your
keep
own
the monitor.
infra.
Just-
I'm trying to figure out the battery drain.
But on
Yeah,
a consumer
typical monitor
level,
is doing that.
like this
Oh, it
might
does
be
that.
80% of
Yeah,
everything.
that's
All the info
better.
is here, it's in your pocket.
Like
I mean,
open it to
that's like the
monitor.
native
I
Mac
don't
app
think it's-
for me.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I'm too lazy, dude. I just keep everything in the
It's-
Or
it's-
I mean, I found it
it's,
funny. I mean, like, you have TMT monitor.
Yeah.
I do it as well sometimes. I mean, there are a lot of like very, very trivial things that, you know,
Yeah.
instead of just doing it the normal way, or asking
It's
AI
like
to
whether
do
you
it
think
for
the
me.
inkling
I
is
100%
Geek status or
is
something,
anything,
stuff like
just
that.
total
No, I
basically.
actually think it's like a
Inkling.
I think it's
You know,
I
what's your name?
attribute to
Murat.
there's certain learning involved in like the more you give it to the AI, learning in terms of like I'm gonna start picking up these patterns, and they only emerge from like just doing it.
Training.
And
It's the most amazing. You put in.
so there's like this philosophy that I have where it's like I have to force myself. I have to reinforce my concept of like if I'm gonna do something by the mouse, stop. Don't do that. Go to the agent. Even if it's like changing one little line, but I totally sometimes I think about it like
I mean,
but
if there wasn't an app for that, I would consider, you know, telling Claude or whatever to, hey, can you build me a monitor?
Because you know what I mean.
You can like
yeah.
say,
But
Even
I mean,
then, I still
You
wouldn't.
have it like in your Mac. I mean, just start the activity monitor and you have it over there. I mean, it's like when you ask AI to write a text pad right now, I mean, you already have it there.
This is how AI build I
guess what
am.
I'm
Like
saying.
I am
What's
so.
interesting about the conversation?
I like my direction is like to
Is
be
it
the
gonna be one
laziest
model
developer
ever?
ever.
The bigger it is, the more.
Yeah.
Every possible.
I get
And so
that. I
therefore-
get that perspective.
This is a lost cause. Like
I'm like-
it's a bad idea.
2 years ago,
Trying
we
to
used to
train
when
smaller
like
models be very
no,
specific.
when the
That's a
Ada
really
used to come,
interesting
that
conversation.
seems to be
around
the way
when
things
Cursor was
are
beta,
trained.
there used to be a program called
That's all I
Hater.
can say is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
training.
What?
But I'm
It's
just
called
trying to say
Hater.
what's interesting to me is
I'll put it up on the
bets
screen.
are on.
It
And
was
these people are not necessarily.
It was-
You could just say they don't know what they're
super
doing,
old.
you know what I mean?
Coding agent or something like
It's an interesting
It was a
idea,
completion.
it hasn't been proven.
it was a terminal app actually.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying
Maybe
the
it's just
powers-
gone now.
The power struggle is on. And NVIDIA.
I remember at the
giant
time when this came out,
actually for
many,
the world
many
that I'm
years
talking
ago.
about, the one that you're saying
Yeah, this
probably
thing.
not likely or whatever. Like fair enough.
I remember at the time when
You
the
get
models
one
were
of
so
my
bad
points.
at coding, and you had a couple of maybe a lot of high level programmers here. And
NVIDIA. Oh,
they
that
would make fun of me
data
because
center.
I
What they
was
don't
so
want to
lazy.
have is that they
At the
don't
time
want to
I
have
quit the industry. I was
only
like, I'm
4
done.
buyers that show up to the table.
And then
Like when they're selling their
I-
shit, they don't want 4 people because that's too much
was
leverage.
so
They would prefer to have
didn't care so much
Yeah,
about
100,000,
so much that like
20,000
if a single line had to be
different
changed, I was so
you look
busy
across
that I
the
was like,
ecosystem as customers.
If you look
Yeah,
at
we
the
just
RAM,
direct
it's
it,
right
yeah.
in the office.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I do it
Yeah.
for Git commands. I mean, I could type Git status.
That's why.
You know, instead of
That's
typing
why-
Git
that's why
status,
I'm
I would
saying
like, hey,
it's
can you
his
check like
interest
what's the current
to go
like
again to
10 times the words.
Yes,
I mean, Git
he's gonna make
status,
shit
so
load
hey,
of
can
money.
you check what's the
Yeah,
current
he can
status of the
see
repo?
the
Oh, blah,
risk
blah, 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 blah.
ahead
Yes,
of
here.
time.
Give me,
And
you
so
know, a
there's
whole
going to be people for different purposes.
verbose thing
Right.
instead of like.
Like his is not necessarily like I'm going to be.
I will always
I think it's
create
good
this
to
whole-
be aware
you know what I
of
mean, like
what's
this-
in front of you, like what's
It's in his
available,
interest to
what's
sell it
cheaper.
and have the money, right? So
I mean, at certain points.
I
Yeah.
actually think
But
you're
it
right.
seems like
That
that's
actually there is a really
it's
good.
not that people in their
There
bedroom
is a
trying
good
to use
reason
Java
to.
4.
But I'm just saying. So you look at what's happening, right? Like he
Actually,
Jensen
it's a really good
Huang
point.
never had a Twitter
My
account.
laziness though
Never
is
had
still
an
more
X account.
powerful than your logic.
in, like,
I would
15,
say it
20
like
years,
that.
whatever.
I would like,
And then
I mean,
he's like,
ideally,
I have a Twitter
like
account.
my
Hello.
AI
And
to
then the
point
first
out
thing
to
he
me,
does
like if I ask him something like that, I would
write
like
a,
to point out to me,
a
hey dude,
manifesto or
why do you ask me something so
shout out
simple?
that
Just
says
Git status
how
for
important
me.
it is.
Here.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
basically,
or
say,
if
oh,
I ask you,
shit,
hey, can you show me like,
this stuff's gonna
you
get
know, the whole activities and what you're doing, memory doing, dude, just open activity monitor on your Mac already. Why do you need me to do it?
I have to really push my
Because right now the AI is trying to be
It's
super
typical.
helpful for like
If it
signaling
goes over
stuff.
with no
And,
return,
you know, my issues with the AI is like
closes
doing
his
a lot of
strategic
code.
options, you know what I
Like
mean,
a
as
lot of
business.
unnecessary code.
So I'm just saying, like,
you
that's
know,
what I'm
already
seeing.
exists somewhere.
I just wish
Very
these
simple way
Linux
to do it.
drivers were open
I would like
source
the
years, 'cause they've been struggling against that
next
for a while.
generation models to
Oh,
have
cool.
that level of
NVIDIA's
common
shitty
sense.
drivers on open source
Oh,
software.
sure.
They
I don't
can,
know.
you know,
Yeah, it's just,
direct you
Great for them
to the most
I'm just saying a lot's happening.
common
now because
sense
of
like
how powerful
solution
those big
or
data
simple
are.
solution.
And they're actually real.
You know, it
issues.
stops spitting out code
Like, I
and
think that-
reinventing and building stuff.
That's
Like,
a really good point. You know, I feel like the whole
Like,
hurdle
it's
of
not
getting people
easy.
onto AI actually includes what you're talking about. Working with like on the FDE side with people who don't know what they're doing or who need AI help. What you're describing is actually the most ideal thing. You know, like standing over the shoulder of someone who's telling them, here's how things work. You would wish the model to take your job. take my job. So it tells them like, yeah, click this button to do a lot of shit. So you're right.
You're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right. All right, guys, I think we can go ahead and start. So today what we're going to do is something a little different from what we normally do. I think based on the feedback from last week and those discussions that came out of that, where it's like, hey, let's lean more on the technical side. That's what we're going to do. We're going to lean far more technical and less who cares about the news. I think the feedback was like, I already keep up with the news. Don't bring the news here. So I thought, okay, great. Then we'll find something technical to talk about during the week. In the WhatsApp group, I know there were a bunch of discussions during the week. I try to extract. I extracted a list. We'll go over it. I think that's what will be the talking points. Furthermore, last week we also talked about this Slido concept where you can just like if you scan that, for those who already scanned it, it's going to open up some application. I just saw it for the first time. So I'm going to submit a question. Look, I don't know how it works. I just submitted a question called test. There it is. So I know this has been requested where maybe you want to bring up a topic and but you don't want to share it out loud. Drop it in there and we'll read it. Everybody will see it. And I think that's like our one of our solutions for how to solve that problem of how do I share something without, I don't know, if you're shy or whatever.
Is that an existing app or is it yours?
Existing app. This is, someone suggested this one and it just happened to be
right now. Install and then I can.
It should be.
Oh, it's here. It's a web app.
Yeah, it should be like a WPA or a web app.
All right. Okay. Okay. And should we like do it right now, or you already have the list of the topics? I mean, should
Oh, okay, good question. So I have the topics right here, or I know here. I have topics right here. Now we don't have to subscribe to these. We can totally change it. Like I will click one of these things and it will reveal a topic. For example, like this one. Less looking at code. I know that's one of the discussion points that came up in the week. Before I do that, just saying, if you drop something in here because maybe you don't like the topics, drop it in here and we'll like pivot to that, right? I think that's the way we're just going to do it. So if there's something you want to talk about, put it in there. If there's a question you have, put it in there. All right, with that, let's go ahead and we'll start from the top. So again, my agent went through the WhatsApp group and just collected a ton of shit and made it like just vomited this list. So it's possible that there are items on here that are like, that's stupid, let's move on. That's fine with me. We don't have to talk about every single one of these. And I don't even know what's going to be behind these as well. So it's kind of a surprise for me as well. So starting with the first one, less looking at code. Let's read this. Let's see where it came from. This might have came from like Monday or Tuesday. Tolerance for not reading AI code varies wildly with the industry. I think this came from, there was a chat discussion on to what extent are you reading the code in your app? And I think this ended up like going to all these discussion points where there are arguments for you should be reading the code. I have no doubt about that in some cases. And there's other arguments where maybe you shouldn't be reading the code. I don't know. I actually don't want to, I am actually curious, this is part of the whole, this concept, to discuss with the room. What is your take on that?
I can kickstart it because
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm the one who started it in the WhatsApp group, so I can kickstart it. I think it's not an argument. You should or you shouldn't. I think there's a spectrum, like you said, and you need, whenever you do something, you need to understand the blast radius of what you're doing and what's the level of risk you're willing to take. And you need to kind of develop that intuition for, this kind of tool, like it's an internal tool that runs with my system, it's serving me, and I can tolerate some bugs once in a while, and I can tolerate it being messy, and it's not that big. So I can just vibe code it, and I don't need to read the code, and it's enough for me to just do some smoke tests and see that it works, and that's fine. And there's another side of the spectrum where you're a big fintech service, you're a bank, or you're a healthcare service, or you're an internet infrastructure like Cloudflare or something like that, and you build systems that are super critical, and failure is just not an option, and you just have to apply a totally different level of scrutiny to what you're doing. I mean, you just have to sometimes either read every single line of code or spec it out really carefully and have some very robust testing and maintenance mechanism to ensure that it just scales and doesn't get out of control. So it's not about whether you should or you shouldn't. You just have to see what's the current task and apply the right judgment per task. And,
Sure.
when I do things, I have some parts that I really don't care about. I mean, I just know that it works. It's not a critical component. I see some tests around it. The test proves that it works, and that's enough.
Sure.
And I have other components where, I just have to see, even for the sake of maintainability, I have to see what's going on there. Because
Well, I'm curious, like, who in the room agrees or disagrees, and what do you do? I think that's like that would be one of the things that I'm most curious in. I'm curious if there's anybody in here with like close to mission critical system or runs mission critical systems and is like, you have a totally different philosophy. But go ahead.
I just want to say an opposing viewpoint that I was watching OpenAI's talk about the Hugging Face hack last night,
Yeah.
and they were actually saying like, we need to have defensive postures that go straight to production in an automated fashion, or we're never going to be able to keep up with the hacking AI. So they're actually talking about not just pushing code to production that's AI written, but like writing the patches too. They're saying
While in production, it's like an agent sitting in production.
Yeah,
Is that what they were alluding to?
yeah, like if we don't have that, then the offensive agents are going to destroy all of our shit. That's kind of their viewpoint.
That is
That's interesting.
That's a big, interesting topic, because that world means you cannot afford to sit and read the code.
Yeah, we can't keep up.
The AI is doing it.
Well, that's a question I would have for you guys, is do you think that a human reviewer is as good as
No,
an AI reviewer? No way. Right?
no. So,
I mean, I've been in my share of code reviews in the hardware world, and I think that the results of code reviews are terrible.
there is a good
Spent many hours and found very little.
so my background is I've built an online bank and I've worked in high frequency trading systems, so I understand what you need to do as a programmer from that point of view. But for the last 3 years of LLMs, I've only focused on vibe coding first approach, and that means that everything you have to write is from a defensive posture, which means when you've got a coding agent, you've got 20 other agents around it, and you just keep, it's all harness engineering, it's not actual coding that you're doing. It's like, how's your documentation system going? How's your QA going? How's your user acceptance testing going? How's your architecture? Where are you looking at the blind spots? Where are you going path traversal and going, what happens if you go down bad path traversal? When you go into documentation, where are you doing the, because good documentation is not that useful to AI, but negative phase documentation is really good, where you say, these are where all the minefields are, and you can only learn that by actually having pain from your coding agents and documenting it as it goes. So I'm of the opinion that vibe code everything, but the coding is just a really tiny part of what you're actually vibe coding.
Is there any of these vibe coded parts that are actually running in the bank right now?
No, like I said, my background is I've done a bank and I've done high frequency stuff, so I understand the problem. But today I'm a YouTuber, so I don't come at, I don't, my stuff is not mission critical, but I still think from that mindset. And
If you were in a position right now you're like, I don't know, you're working for a client or something like that, you just have to implement a payment system right now. Would you still do it like that?
yeah, I'd just be putting a shitload of energy into the different testing layers. There's so many of them. Yeah, a lot of seed data, synthetic data, and run the tests through synthetic data. But again, I will state I'm not in that space anymore. So maybe I'd take a different point of view if I was in that. And I don't think most developers ever need to worry about that in this world, but we still,
Right.
no matter what you're doing, if you write a little byte code application for yourself and you expose it to agents from the outside world, you can still get hammered really hard personally. So I think this defensive agent posture is right, whether you're a simple vibe coder or you're a banking vibe coder.
So there's a lot of nuance here, like there tremendous amount of nuance, and there's also this whole thing about directionally how should we think about this, and I think that's so important because one thing that's like always to avoid is getting stuck in this world of like, well, I need to think a certain way, and maybe what's important is like knowing what's coming down the pipeline, what are other people doing. I kind of need to know, I need to hear that stuff to understand what's there. Someone's going to be pushing the limit and they're going to find some and be very successful at like running agents in production, which sounds crazy, but also OpenAI said it. And if they do it, it's like, okay, that's it, like that's sort of the reality. Does anyone run, I'm curious, who here with a raise of hand, like does not read their code at all? Like 100% you don't read your code? It's like all of us.
I'm good at pitches.
Yeah.
I was saying, I mean, I read it on occasion, but not every time. I think the biggest problem with agents though is once you hit a cadence with them, you can kind of work out what they're probably going to do, right? Based on what you say. But I think the biggest thing is maybe building like barriers through documentation or barriers through code, or also just getting most of the code generated. So I use like Proto, a lot of Proto files to just generate enums and types and things like that. So creating as many barriers as I can to kind of suppress the freedom that the agent has. So you're not allowed to do this, you have to generate it here. You can only use SQL through SQLC to just kind of prevent the whole hallucination drip.
That is so cool. So you're defining it sounds like you're like, if I focus on just these constraints, I can kind of trust.
Right, yeah.
I love that. I think that's so good. So so you said thinking of like
enums.
interfaces basically, right?
Yeah. Interfaces, protobufs, so like gRPC channels between microservices. But also doing that to then generate the Go code. So I mainly do Go lines. So to generate the Go code, but you can also then generate TypeScript code in the same format. So the back end can change, the front end will reflect it. And then there's no room for it to kind of, I generated this because I thought it was this email address. So just putting these layers of like you're not allowed to, there's no room for it to cheat, right?
Right. That's
and
awesome.
It forces it down the same path, so it doesn't, I mean, there's always bugs, but at least it mitigates most of the bugs. And kind of the obvious bugs that it's just generated something that doesn't exist. It knows what exists.
And the good thing about a lot of that is that none of that's large language model. It's all the deterministic stuff that we do with linting and all the sort of the stuff you can do in pre-hooks and all that. If you look at all those layers that open source communities have been developing for 30 years, and you tick them all off in your CI pipeline, and you use that as pre-flight instructions to your agents. So your agents can still do their work, but if they don't cover off these deterministic things, then they're wrong.
Sure. Yeah. But that's basically like CI/CD in a way, right? Like always run
but you can do it
this.
locally as well. You don't have to do it up in the cloud. A lot of it can be done.
Oh, sure.
Pre-hooks.
Yeah.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that.
To an extent, yeah, I agree.
I want to figure out a question. I mean,
Yeah.
you asked, is there anybody who doesn't read their code? Is there anybody who develops either a mission critical system or a massive scale system or something that has billions of users and doesn't read the code? Here?
I believe in them. I'm surprised that so many people are looking at the code. I would assume them. Or maybe what is my mistake? Everything you would develop, at some point, for example, to create SQLs, where they have the possibility of doing something for the performance. So nobody would look into this. In my mind, I would expect every piece of software to have some part that is mission critical. Am I wrong in this?
Yeah, so there's a spectrum. You know which component is critical. You can isolate that part, and this one, I just have to be super mindful about, and there's some other stuff that they can be a bit more lax about. I mean, it's not about the whole thing. It's about putting different level of attention to each component in your system and know which one deserves a lot of scrutiny and which one doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I think
That's
there
a
might be
judgment
this
you still need to have as an engineer. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't just fight code it.
Yeah. So it's like I don't know if you're so let's say in your company you have like 100 applications and you maybe want to determine based on the criticalness on how the uptime that's required. You can say like, look, for these in this category, that team has cannot do maybe some of these other things. So I imagine that's. I mean, I actually don't know how it works in some of these big companies because I don't work in them anymore.
I can share something because I had a friend do a lecture about it, and they're a code review company, kind of like CodeRabbit, but they're called Buzz. They're a startup. They're doing the same thing like CodeRabbit with Reptile and stuff. They have a big cloud production server, and they developed a merge agent, which means that agent is supposed to take a PR and decide if it can be auto-merged, without a human review. And the way it does it is kind of a triage. Basically, it's looking at factors like what areas is it touching inside the app. There's some areas that are considered more safe, and there are some areas that are considered less safe. And if it's touching some areas that are considered less safe, it's not going to auto-merge, it's going to delegate to a human. And if it's touching there are some things, for example, I don't know, some React components or something that where the worst case would be a UI glitch or something like that. I mean, it can auto-merge it. It has some, they have E2E tests, they see stuff, but the worst case is there is some little UI glitch, they'll apply the fix or roll back, but it's not the critical part.
That's actually really good because I know there are classifications within companies, and every company should be defining like what is your P1, like what designates as P1, P2, P3 sort of situation, and there should be like a clear we don't care about it if it falls under this sort of like bullet points, and potentially ideally your auto merge system is trying to check, okay, well, does it fall under one of these things? Which one does it fall?
I mean, they're going to be different systems entirely, right? I mean, if they're talking about big enterprise, it'll be, I don't know, the core payment system will be one repo in itself. There's not going to be UI and security and whatever else. I'm lazy, I just chuck everything in a mono repo now so that it can see everything. But I think in prop enterprise, they're a little bit more structured, and they think, okay, this is the security team, you're in charge of one thing, don't fuck up. You're doing the UI. Also, don't fuck up, but you won't lose your job if you do.
Right.
So
yeah.
I guess also with that, different CI/CD and different kind of layers and skills, whatever, come with the repo to kind of guide the agents like how and what hat they need to wear.
Yeah.
Question of liability as well. Like, if I'm building a payment system for somebody else, and I may trust the agent, which is almost all the coding models and agents are smarter than me at this point, so there's very little for me to actually review the code. But I would have to understand what's happening in it, because the people paying for me to do that will be asking me, and I'm responsible, but not the agent. So there's that it's like a level of understanding of the software built by the agent that I can explain to somebody else if something goes wrong. It's probably going there. So until such time that the agent takes responsibility for it, I need to be able to know that. So it's like a case of trust but verify. So I can trust the system to be able to build what I need to build, given that my instructions are clear enough. But there has to be some sort of a verification system. So even if I trust that it'll make it correct, then I need to, even if it's just / code review / security review, something like that. That is the final part of the process, to verify that the agent actually did what it was supposed to do. So even if I know that it's going to 100% follow my instructions, I need to make sure that my instructions were correct.
So the problem, depending on how you set that up, if you've got an agent do code review and then you go and do a you do work and then you do a / code review, you're doing it in the same session where the agent did the work, and it's always a lie. That's why you have to build a harness around it to test everything.
Writing its own homework.
Yeah, I mean, Ideally, yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly what's the best process of doing the review, but there has to be something like that. But at the I haven't done any complex or security critical application with AI for somebody else yet.
It can be about scale, not about, it doesn't have to be about payments and security. It can be just about, if you scale to 1 million users,
Sure, yeah,
10 million users,
totally,
it's
yeah.
a completely different league than having your little tiny SaaS with like 100 users.
So I find the bigger the application gets, the more you've got to take those critical areas and isolate them to libraries.
Yeah.
And it's composable software, not monolithic software. But, you don't have to vibe code that bigger application before it just goes off in all sorts of weird directions.
Yeah.
And that's the point that you go, well, that's a library or it's a component.
Well, let me.
I just have a story which I'll quickly do. So I think skimming the code at least is useful for like any software that's important, right? I've done vibe coding just for experimental stuff. I just want to try out my idea. Does the idea work or not? I had this open source library that I'm working on, which is in Rust, and I mostly vibe coded it, and he's done a fantastic job of getting things working. Hundreds of test cases, they all passed. Great. And then I started having a look at code, and I realized it's not thread safe. And even though Rust has some very strict things to enforce thread safety, there are ways around that, which the agent decided a lot easier than actually following, the spirit of the design. And so it had gotten the surface parts right, but it had this the library had this really deep architecture flaw. It took me about 4 days to fix with a combination of manual coding and AI assistance. And so just because something looks like it's working doesn't mean it's correct. And my library is not being used by anybody yet, but I was able to, through scanning the source code and just understanding how it does things, I can see when somebody tries to use this at scale in a multi-threaded environment, it will die and it will corrupt. And if I hadn't read the code, I wouldn't have noticed that. And people would be getting weird errors.
So how did
I think anything security related at the same applies.
How did you discover the bug?
So
How did you discover it?
the bug was the code was not thread safe.
Uh-huh.
And this is a library, so if somebody was using it in multi-threaded code, and it's designed to be used in a multi-threaded context, then there would be crashes.
But was that part of the spec, by the way? Well, like when the AI implemented it, was that part of the spec to make it thread safe?
It's implicit in the spec.
But this is where the harness has to expand to say what testing systems are you putting around that's so from your architecture point of view, if you'd have said make it thread safe, it's still 50-50 whether it happens. But the fact that you could spin off side projects to go, can we test this library in various thread safe scenarios and write reports of it so that it's available to the coding agents. And this is what I'm trying to say is that it's all the shit around it. It's not the actual coding that you've got to try and get right.
The way in which it was not thread safe is something that would only come up in rare circumstances, but it could happen. So it's a problem that you only see very occasionally, and you can apply the same philosophy to security problems, right? You can do all the testing in the world, and then one little detail that if somebody figures that out, then they can find a way through.
And that's a fair enough statement, but there's a bunch of those classifications, and you can only really fill them in as you encounter them, but they become part of the high-level integration test.
Oh, are you suggesting like, hey, I vibe coded this Rust app. I noticed that it's not thread safe, so I'm gonna now, let's say, add a verification step to my SDLC. Whatever SDLC you have.
It's wrong lens at the SDLC. So, because I build software factories, That's what I'm trying to do with software factories.
Sure.
You've got these different layers of the software factory.
Yeah.
Not all of them are at the ticket level, not all of them are at the feature level. But you've got to keep building these extra scaffolding around everything.
Well,
So-
where's the difference though? Why is that?
Well,
not
at the
in
moment,
there?
we're at the usage point of view. That's nothing to do with coding. It's what are the usage scenarios?
Oh,
What
I'm
happens?
suggesting like after development is done by this agent, and this is a question also to the room, what sort of verification systems do you have post-development? You might have developments done, PRs made, code reviews done, then maybe some sort of loop to keep running that PR review until literally nothing's left. I'm not saying you should do that.
I have end user phases. So sometimes they're mechanical. So if you're doing something, I just built a bunch of skills called drivable because I don't want to drive web apps or Electron apps. I just don't want to go in and click around. And Playwright is just so damn slow. So I created a skill called drivable, which is to say whatever anyone can do in the application can also be driven from Claude Code. And so from that, you can create mechanical tools that just say, fire this, make sure if with this input, it's kind of like a unit test, but it's an integration test. Fire this API, make sure an action happens, something got written. Or you can take it to the next level and say, write an actual user acceptance test of an administrator going through the system, a normal user going through the system,
Sure.
an accountant
Yeah.
going through the system.
That's verification steps.
But I automate it. It's all automated.
Yeah.
So and all of those get run after the software is built, just to make sure that it works. Now you can do it's thread safe versions of that. Any of those can all be done as well. So I'm just saying there's many layers that have nothing to do with the actual coding or the spec you write to make the code work, because the AI will lie because it just can't think outside its lane. You've got to have stuff looking at it from outside the lane.
Actually, I think an adversarial testing or an adversarial, like having an agent, telling an agent, go and break into the system.
Oh,
Attack the system. As long as you're not like being nerfed by the guardrails, it's like see if you can find a way.
So adversarial, you can take one step further and say, so I have a fan out system where everything is adversarial, but there's an orchestrator in the middle that checks it. Because what that system can do is look at a problem from one point of view and see it from another point of view and negate it. And go, well, it's not actually a problem. So you take that adversarial mindset, but you have one person in charge of it.
I want to level the topic for 1 second because I want to still get more feedback from the room. A lot of you guys raised your hand when I asked who's not reading your code. All right, what are you doing to verify that? I'd like to hear from the room, like what verification steps, loops, agents, whatever, humans, whatever, what are you doing that makes you so confident to not read the code? Or is it just like, I smoke test, green, great, which is fine, like from a money perspective, like in some cases that makes sense. I could see in some worlds where prototype, for example.
I mean, in my world, I would do extensive E2E tests, and obviously AI allows me to write a lot of E2E tests. I mean, more than I would write by myself because I'm so lazy. I mean, I can just come up with all those crazy scenarios and all this stress or adversarial scenarios, like you said, and just write them. And that's the thing I would like. I mean, I would have done it anyway before AI as well, just not on a massive scale like AI allows me to do.
Yeah.
And I think this is supposed to be a simple part of a process. I mean, if you have a spec, like you said, if you have a certain component and you know it's supposed to be thread safe, that's the spec. If that's the spec, then there has to be a test that proves that spec. I mean, as part of the implementation, as part of letting the AI implement it, you have to also provide AI, what's the test case. So the test case is, this function is invoked like 1,000 times from different threads with random values, and it has to withstand the stress. That's part of the spec, for example. So you have to prove it.
Yeah, I'm
So,
the same. I rely on unit testing. It's a huge bottleneck because I'm the only tester.
Because like the
But
non.
reading code would also be a huge problem.
Do you let the AI write the tests?
No, but it can do a certain amount of.
And then you read the tests. Okay, so we moved a couple levels, so now instead of reading code, we're generating tests, but then we're not reading the tests either. So I wonder if that puts us into a
Well, I
situation
guess
where-
I'm creating the test of myself,
You
but
are.
I understand, what the spec is and what my intent was, which the thing, sometimes there's a disconnect there in the intent. I created the test myself.
Who's got like who's got CI/CD verification in their CI/CD loop? Does anyone here have any?
What do you mean by like tests?
It-
Or, like agentic?
I want to leave it as open as possible because there's so many forms, but it could be like normal standard CI/CD running some deterministic system, and if it fails, whatever, like you have a deterministic thing, runs all these tests, maybe spins up 100 containers to run E to E on various form factors, or maybe you have, and I'm curious if you have like CI/CD that spawns agents to do something. I've seen this sort of form. It's fairly expensive, but I've seen it. So I'm just curious. I want to query the room as open as possible. Like who has what, if you're willing to share.
So I've started building, this is a web application. It's a very typical thing, front end, back end, and a database. So instead of trying to build some sort of a UI testing system, I built these API flows. So there's, the user logs into a system and does something. There's always certain steps, and those steps are then recorded as like an API call and test flow. And each of these flows then become like, there's a matrix that comes with that. So initially when I was doing the very first one, it was like me coming up with these scenarios, which is kind of tricky. Like they're basically UATs, some sort of a cases that I think might happen. But it got actually useful like a couple months after the app's been in production, because I started mining the actual production logs to see what the people actually do in there. This is used production database and the actual logs. I can see that like 80% of the users are running these certain steps. And these flows then become another flow in the test system.
Yeah.
And every time I'm fixing a bug, that's another, something breaks. So I build another flow around that to make sure that this works again. And always like, those are gates when I deploy the application. So every time I deploy the application, I'm like 95% certain that the most common ways the system, the users are using this to still work like this.
Yeah.
And that's the key, like using the actual live data from the logs and database instead of trying to build an impossibly big matrix that's covering like every choices. So use what's actually happening in the system and model the cases based on that.
I've found that technique, the reason I have the drivable skill is to do that, to create those workflows. But then once you've got that, it becomes really easy to take that deterministic application with forms and wizards and all that sort of stuff. Because you've built those workflows that you just said, it's like, how can I control it remotely? You can then put a chat client straight in on the left, and suddenly you don't now need to use the main control plane, because you can go to a chatbot and it controls the application just the same way you work.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm taking that for these applications that I build, little homegrown applications like automating image generation, and going, well, because I've got the drivable in place, I've got the application, I've got the drivable, I've got the automated workflows. Let's just put a chatbot in, and now I don't need to use the application anymore unless I want to. I can just talk. So it just keeps leveling up when you do that.
I'm curious to remember where they find the biggest kind of the buggiest surface. If it's like the back end or the front end, because it sounds like a lot of these are like user journey processes where there's an unusual flow or someone's clicked in a certain sequence and there's caused something to go wrong somewhere in the system. So it's very like front end focused with like protect the user. So is it fair to say everyone's quite happy with like the back end with traditional unit tests, integrated tests, and then it's really just tightening the front end to make sure that the user flow is always optimal and working.
They're both important. And
Of course, both
there's the
important,
third
but-
layer, which is
Yeah.
what represents in document both of them.
Yeah.
Because if you did that, the unit test you should just do automatically or back. But user tests really represent user story. And so the user interface is the example of user story. But if you write a document in the middle of it, which is, well, what is the unit test we need, how does it relate to user stories, that kind of drives the creation of tests on those sorts of events. It's also the thing that drives the automatic creation of MCPs, APIs, stuff like that, so that you can then make it available to chatbots to do it on your behalf.
You say the automatic creation, or leads to, so the user test you're saying is the first thing you write, and then that will lead to how you write the APIs. Is this like?
It leads to it. I'm not saying there's a specific order over them. I'm just saying that they're all related, but you need some sort of abstraction that's over the top of it all. Because if you try to create user story tests or flow tests from a unit test perspective, it's blinkered. It doesn't understand.
Well, so it's not testing a unit, right? It becomes a full integration. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't bother with any kind of pair testing, but I think I found something nice with like the generated TypeScript code, because then the front end, maybe I click a few buttons every now and then when it's done, but I kind of assume that's done. And then every microservice I have, maybe 5 microservices, are all just, they fuzz the boundaries, so they don't actually interact with any other service. Everything's kind of encapsulated to its own, and then I can fuzz the boundaries using the generated code. So I just use like interfaces to test the boundaries and say, it's probably going to work like this, and I can kind of prove it works because everything's got testing, everything's got hot path integration testing. Because everything's compiled, there's never any kind of, oh, this variable doesn't exist, or this is unused, or you're trying to map a string to an integer or something. Everything's kind of, works.
I want to ask questions about that, but actually I also want to. We covered one item out of
I actually had another thing to insert to that thing. I mean,
let's
unless
move on.
we really want to move on.
Yeah,
I
let's
think
move
it's like
on.
another angle to it.
Well, we're all playing with this whole new format, right? So for those who like stepped in the room a little bit later, we're doing 2 things. Slido, there's a QR code. Scan that. Post your question. Looks like a bunch of you already submitted. Maybe before I move on to the next question on the schedule or whatever you want to call it, scratch pad that I have there, maybe we just knock off one of these questions.
Can I make a request
Yeah.
that everyone project to the full room?
Yeah.
That's all.
Good point. Yeah, it is. I can understand that it might be hard to hear. And actually, I think I'm actually going to try to solve this in a different way. Not today, like please project if you can.
Sure.
But next time, I think I'm just going to have the tables literally facing each other so that we're all closer together. Kind of like the room, for those who remember the room upstairs. Even though it's a bit more claustrophobic, it's actually...
You should pick a topic and pick sides.
Yeah.
Who doesn't read.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really, I like that layout. So I think I'll bring it out next week. If not, we'll just go to the other room. All right, so let's actually just, all right, look, there's an upvoted question. It's got one upvote. News this week plus this thing where, we're going to do this second. I'm not changing it. So this one. Yeah. What does that do? Oh, okay, great. There. News this week plus thing where Claude can send messages to other sessions. Oh, to be discussed, right? So you want to talk about, this is probably in reference to, I'm guessing, I didn't write it, in reference to the new send message tool that's now available in Claude. This just came out yesterday, I think. And my understanding here, and there's a reason I'm opening up my X profile. Here we go. So Daisy Hallman, developer from Claude Code, she's the one that wrote the plugin. Actually, wait, let me take a step back. So there's a send message tool that came out from Claude that came out yesterday. I think the way it works, it says that any of your Claude instances can talk to each other, as well as if Claude exists on other devices. So let's say you have a Claude instance running interactively locally, you have one remote, or potentially one on another computer, they can all talk to each other. So Daisy put this post yesterday on this thing. So let's just read it. She said, today we're releasing send message tool for Claude Code. Here's a visualization Claude cooked up of my current sessions connected and grouped by how recently they've sent messages to each other. And she has this long drawn out explanation of what's going on. And that fucking graph is crazy. That's a lot of stuff. And I read this yesterday when she wrote it, and I was like, I actually had maybe some questions that I imagine you would ask, which is like, so I asked the question in here. I told her, could you tell us if this has proven incredibly productive, or is this just a fun project to play and discover with? I'm worried about, spending tokens on using this feature. How do I know it's going to be productive? Spending tokens, finding out where it's useful. I just don't want to do that. Anyways, she responded with a lot and gave her setup, which was also super cool. So I just want to point that out. Like, if you want to see Daisy's setup, it's in that comment chain. So coming back to what was on Slido, what was on Slido? It was this thing where Claude can send messages. So let's talk about it. Does anyone think this is useful to their workflow? I haven't tried it.
I've been using an older version of it because send message has been around for a while and used it 2 months. And I'd already had my Chaperone agent talking to my Swagger agent. So Swagger does all the coding for Chaperone watches.
Using that tool? Or
I've been using a Blackboard MCP. And so I ran all of that, what they currently do, through these new releases, because these new releases came out two sessions ago. No, it wasn't yesterday, I think it was the day before it came out.
Yes. Yeah.
And what it creates is every time a session starts, on session start, you get a PID.soc. So you've got a socket that you can communicate through. And I don't know yet how it picks up on the other side. I have a lot of problems sending message to agents and then having to go to the other agent and say, can you read it? So I don't know whether that is become nicer, but I'm doing deep research on it right now because I already follow that pattern. I just didn't have as good a tool as what we've got now. So, but it's essentially just in session. It's just sockets.
So how does this work? You're basically, it's like I'm in a session, and then my agent will say, oh, there's something related to this in another session. And then it'll what? It'll just ask the question to the other session?
This is a picture of my computer at the moment, and you can see the named. This is one session.
Show the whole room.
This is one session, just saying what on my computer is available. And I name every session I do anyway, so...
Those are all Claude sessions?
These are all Claude sessions.
What's the number approximately?
So we've got the actual session ID here. We've got the name that I've named the session. We've got the PID, so the process ID, the socket ID, the version of Claude that it's on, whether it's idle or running, because that's a new thing they brought in. You can now see what the session is doing. Is it background? Is it interactive? When you do /status, there's a new label there, and so that shows here these are all idle, and you can see the CWD, so you know what window it's in. So essentially, from where you are, you can see everything really quickly. It's called agent list, or list agent. There's a list agent that'll tell you everything that's running, and then you can send messages to them. Now, the pickup is the thing I don't know. Now, you can run a monitor or a loop. You can run a loop, but you can run a monitor.
A Claude monitor, which is a tool that's only available in CLI? Or now
I only used it in CLI, I don't know, I guess. But monitor is part of CLI. Monitor is really designed to read files and stuff. I guess it can read the socket as well. But again, I don't know what the pickup is yet. I just know that you can see all your sessions and you can send messages to them.
But would anyone use it?
What did Daisy? What's the TLDR of Daisy's?
Yeah, I don't get
Okay,
like,
yeah,
what
so-
actually happens. I don't get why you send a
And I
message,
would-
then what happens?
I would imagine it's not. I would imagine it's. I shouldn't even say this. I'm just speculating, but I would imagine it's something you. Here's how I could imagine using it right away. Is
Mhm.
that it's like I have one session that's an orchestrator of some kind, and I'm like, hey, go do something. Go check the status of this other session.
So that's how I use it.
Sure.
It became really
Well, how about,
important.
here, look, I'll show this video. I actually
Yeah,
haven't seen it
yeah.
until now. So this is the video from Claude Dev's account on X, and let's read it out loud. Your sessions can now message each other. Instead of having to re-explain yourself in another session, you can tell Claude to do it. It sends a summary, not your history or files, and the other sessions pick it up mid-task. Let's look at this video they have. 2 terminals, left and right. Top one here says user profiles. Tell Weekly Digest, we renamed users.name to display name. And I think that ID is the name of the session. We'll confirm in a second. So that's interesting in a couple of ways, because one, that is actually the same behavior as Claude channels, which is messages, when injected, are forcibly responded by the harness. Because you have 2 situations where you can actually, like in the case of massively running subagents, not through dynamic workflows, you can have like a silent response, or actually a non-response from the harness. So this is interesting where if a message gets sent over, the agent forcibly has to respond to it. But okay, so we just saw what it is. You can send messages now between your Claude sessions. And now if we come back over to Daisy, Daisy's saying, look, I have a lot of these things wired up together. And the question I asked her was like, what are you doing with it? How useful is it? Tell me, because I don't want to go and play with this thing myself and spend money. And her response is really, really cool. I actually want to take a look at it because we can all probably learn about a particular Claude setup that is just, I don't know, it's what she's using. She's one of the fucking developers of Claude Code. So she says, I can honestly say that it's been incredibly productive in a context where someone else is paying for my tokens. Sorry? Oh, zoom in? Yeah. How's that?
Yeah. Good.
So I'm reading this top one. Basically saying she's got unlimited tokens from Anthropic, therefore she can't judge it from a token budgeted perspective. Nonetheless, my daily driver currently looks like 2 lead agents that can keep each other accountable and restart the other if either fails. These delegate to tech leads or PMs, depending on the task, for any of the 8 to 10 coarse-grained projects I'm running at any one time. Whoa, that's a lot. Let's break that down. So there's 2 high-level nodes delegating down to, we don't know how many nodes are underneath that, but we know that categorically there's 8 to 10 projects, distinctive things that are running there. Each of these coarse-grained projects has 5 to 10 individual contributors. So what are we at now? That's 2 branches with, that's already 20-something agent. Each of these coarse-grained projects has 5 to 10 ICs, sometimes generalists, sometimes specialists, depending on the problem. Team layout is about half decided by me directly, and about half decided by Claude as needed based on a set of principles. That's another interesting telling. So there's a half human in the loop there, and the other half of like, Claude, go do your thing. I'd say about 60% of my interaction is directly with the leads, 35% with one of the project leads, again, depending on whether the interaction is PM-shaped or TL-shaped. What the hell is TL-shaped? What is it? Which one?
Team lead.
Oh, team lead. All right, okay, right, okay. Thank you. And 5% is when a very specific piece of the project has gone off the rails and I interact directly. Pretty cool. I hope this helps. Let me know if there's any questions.
Let's guess now.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like, are we just looking at a more polished version of what we were discussing last year? Because we talked about all this shit last year, right?
Isn't that's how everything goes, right? Just like how Instacart is Webvan or have Cosmo.com, right? The idea, that's what Mark Andreessen always says. Every idea is right. It's just when, you know,
Oh, the timing of
part-
it.
Yeah, timing,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's not too different. Look, it's not too different from you just walk into any fucking software org and it's like, what is the structure of that development team or teams? And it doesn't look that different from this. It
This
really
is how,
doesn't.
This is the only way you could get to the Boris that you presented on, right? Because she's already at, what, 50 to 100 here?
Yeah, this would put it at a level 3.
This is this is the only way you could scale, right? It's at least 60% of your interaction is with 2 reports.
Do you think she's reading our code?
No, exactly. No, 0. It doesn't. No way. It doesn't scale. It's
She's done
applicable,
videos.
but it can't scale.
She's
That's
done
why
videos
it's
on.
adversarial. You have 2 people. You have 2 quads
Yeah.
fighting with each other.
You think that's what's happening? Do you think
I
they're?
mean, look, Cold Card got hacked. Like every Microsoft gets hacked. Firefox gets hacked. Meta gets hacked. It's like you think you're not gonna get hacked because you read the code. I'm skeptical. At
I see what you're
minimum.
saying. Yeah, good
That
point.
your ability to read the code is gonna do anything from this point
Forward.
It's
Yeah.
like the steel driving man who's like gonna outdrive the train or the machine, whatever. It's like you lost, human. Good luck. Next. Land it.
Let me phrase it a little bit differently.
Thank you.
So let's say we're not reading the code. How do you know your agent is working efficiently?
I personally am super skeptical of all this autonomy. Like I feel much more like an F1 driver. Like my presence is incredibly, it's more and more essential because as the system scales more, you go off rails 0.01% and the stakes are bigger.
Yeah.
But for that reason, the goal is you have to get more and more leverage for your unit of time, right? Like you can't do F1 in a Honda City, right? You need a high performance machine, which is this, in the direction of this. Otherwise, you're the bottom. So you want to make yourself the bottleneck at higher and higher scales of leverage is how because to me the goal, it's like, what's your goal? The goal is to be a solo unicorn, fundamentally, right? It's like
Well, to be
you're
a highly leveraged operator, regardless of what this scenario is, it's sort of like, and we know that's a talent skill issue, like can you do that? That makes you valuable.
Right.
We think, at the moment, we think that makes you valuable. And the world thinks that too, right? Now, how do you verify? Well, I don't want to answer it. I think that the room should throw what they think, and we kind of talked on it earlier. There's probably many ways. This is probably the one Daisy landed on. I know in a recent interview, she did explicitly state that Boris and her, for example, don't work the same way. And that just tells me that the team has like styles on how they operate. I mean, you can even see here from Daisy's picture on the top left, and I know it's hard to zoom in, you can look when you get home, it says Swarm View. Daisy's super obsessed with swarms, going back to when she was, I think, the person who made it for Claude last year, and not only made it, then used it to make the plugin system, which everyone has copied across the board, OpenAI, Grok, open source models, and so on. And even then, like, we've had these discussions where not everyone here, I don't agree with swarm architecture. I know even, like, Boris has talked about not agreeing with swarm architecture. There's other developers outside of Anthropic who also don't agree with swarm architecture. So there's nuance. There's no right answer. There's no one answer. It's trade-offs. It's skill. It's I don't know, all these other things.
And they're Anthropic, they have unlimited tokens. They have a level of tokens that I think nobody in the room has, and they can allow themselves to, spawn, a huge amount of agents and verification layers and adversarial reviews, and they can do things that, anybody here with, I don't know, a $200 or $400 subscription or whatever you get is not even going to get close to.
Yeah.
They're sort of in a bubble about this thing. They're developing their,
Yeah,
methodologies inside their bubble.
That's a good point, and there's trade-offs here on this. Like, I think, you know, Anthropic comes out in recent times, they will come out and say, yes, we have a lot of tokens. I'm a developer with access to a lot of tokens. And I think one way to view that is like, well, you have the money and the tokens, therefore you should do the test and tell us what works and doesn't work. Because I don't want to spend my money.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of one way to look at it. But maybe the other one too is like, I don't know if you're telling me to spend, we talk about this, like Anthropic's just trying to convince me to spend more tokens. How am I supposed to know if, maybe there's a third party who, if they sort of asserted what they're saying, would come out and say, that's bullshit. You could do the same effectiveness at 50% of the cost.
But if you look at like DeepSeek Flash, right? I feel like this discussion is also over since 2 weeks ago, because like Gary Tan says, you spend $100,000 in 2026 to live in 2028.
Yeah.
So in 2028, this conversation doesn't even exist because we all have infinite tokens, just like now we have infinite CPU cycles or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like they are. I would think it seems obvious to me. Obviously, could be wrong that you're reverse engineering what they're doing and approximating it with your limited capital.
Yeah,
right?
that's well said. That's yeah.
Yeah, I mean everything Claude and Anthropic especially are doing seems to be like on the basis that a couple of years from now tokens are not a problem anymore.
Right.
So all the solutions are built around you just build the biggest and most efficient system.
Right.
Cost is not relevant. So I think they're kind of banking on that idea.
And I think everyone, when I look at the landscape, whether it's the cursor people or the Chinese people or whatever, everyone's saying the same thing. And DAX, I mean, DAX said like they
yesterday, right?
Yeah, they can verify, they can run DeepSeek Flash at 14 cents, 28 cents.
Yeah.
And like, and then the DeepSeek Pro, the DeepSeek funding, whatever, manifesto, whatever you call that thing, leaked yesterday, and they're saying that DeepSeek 4 Pro, this is what they're telling investors, prospectus as it's called, is within 1% of Anthropic, right?
Explain that. I didn't hear about this manifest. So what happened?
So you know, a prospectus for investors, Series B, C, whatever.
Oh, what happened? There was a leak.
Yeah, it leaked, and what they're claiming is that DeepSeek 4 Pro, not Flash, is within 1% of Fable and Opus. So the point being, it's obviously you posted it. It's like if you look at the curve.
Yeah.
It's like everything's over here.
Yeah.
DeepSeek Flash is like with nothing. It's. I would argue that's a bigger DeepSeek moment than the original DeepSeek moment,
That's
because
right.
what it shows is that tokens are effectively, I speak in generalities, but they're free.
Yeah.
Right? We just haven't arrived 8 months into the future yet.
Yeah. I love that perspective because it lets us look at crazy ideas like this with a lot of respect rather than a lot of like, I can't afford that. Get it out of my face, you know, like.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, so that chart, I don't know if you can, it's basically showing a gray box, okay?
Yeah.
And it's basically saying, look, there's two worlds. There's DeepSeek, Flash, which is cheap as hell, and everything at those two lines below it is pointless. Like, why would you do that? For generally speaking, yeah? And then what do we have at the top? We have OpenAI, Anthropic, and then Kimi and GLM.
Yeah.
That's it. So there's two categories, there's two zones, right? So now the question is, when you're playing with this stuff, because what is this? This is basically them exploring, right? It's an explorer thing. Boris, you go run over there and see like if this works. And you know, Daisy, you go over there and just do your swarm thing. Verdict is not out, yeah? And we're saying, wow, you guys are privileged. You can have this kind of thing. Well, what must be true for that to be true that like I'm locked out? Well, generally the models have, like we're just at the peak where you need the highest to play with this. Otherwise, you do it and it's shit signal, you know, because it's such shit models. If we're getting to a situation where actually that line where DeepSeek is, there's tons of shit to explore, okay? And there's good signal there. There's tons of ground to go look for stuff, yeah? Then it's not true anymore. It's not like, oh, let's wait for them to like figure out what's on the frontier. No, actually, like the whole, like, you know, the rising tide raises all boats, right?
Right.
So if the floor has now come up to where you're like, yeah, I can effectively now start searching and getting signal. You know, this is the right, so in other words, what does that mean? It means that I can say, okay, Boris, how are you doing it? Oh, Swarm, let me spin up, I have one project, I have one goal, let me spin up Swarm crew and Boris crew. Right, my version of it in DeepSeek for my domain, yes? And if it's cheap as chips, I'll spin up 6, 8, 10, as much as I can possibly afford. And then I can figure out which direction like works for me or for whatever it is, you know? Like I can see that, it will be an explosion of that.
So you're saying they're basically pioneering this thing, they're discovering it, they're stepping on all the landmines, and they're paying the price because it's not cheap for
It's
Anthropic
at
to
the,
do that.
highest, so in other words, okay, if Anthropic has this highest level things, yes, so I'm gonna cure cancer, yes, I'm gonna do like advanced material science and shit like this, pharmaceuticals, yeah, obviously I'm not gonna be using DeepSeek. Right. But what is the long tail of all the other shit, knowledge-based work, all the other like professions that you have? Do you need the highest? You know, at what point does the bottom, you know, the good enough is like, holy shit, we just have to exploit now, or we have to explore within the gray zone. And that's the, you know, potential explosion of value, right, of growth, like in society, whatever. This is the thing. And that's why it's exciting.
And the approaches that when the Daisy Boris thing, that's just 2 of infinity, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We don't know, it could be someone in this room who explores in the
Some
way
other
that every,
track.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just ahead of the curve. 3 years from now, you'll be running all this thing on those.
Right.
That's
right.
the assumption, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at some point they are paying a lot of money to build these systems now, but you can take that model and put that on your laptop a couple of years from now.
Yeah.
Ideally, basically.
Yeah, just like cell phones used to cost $10,000, right? Like a car phone on your BMW, right?
Is it that much? I had
Yeah,
no
yeah,
idea.
yeah. Yeah, the earliest days, yeah, for sure.
Well,
And that's that money, 10,000, not our
Yeah,
fake
yeah,
money.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we talked about Claude send message. I hope that satisfied whoever wrote that question. Done. All right, we got 2 choices. Either we go over this or we go over back to the thing I have, whatever's on there. I don't even know. I'll ask a vote. Who wants to talk about what's the most useful thing you built for yourself? Let's just jump into it. Go.
Sure, yeah. So I built for myself a very good token optimizer.
Sorry, before you start, so
project.
when we do this, I want to do, well, let's limit, because if there are like 10 people, I want to limit the
How
sharing.
much time? How much time do you give?
Let's do, what's reasonable? Shit,
2
depends on how many people. Let's do 2 minutes. Let's start with that. Yeah.
Okay, start. So I built for myself this token optimizer for coding agents. So you probably have seen like either RTK or others, they're all kind of tools that compress bash output, which they have a lot of hype about them, but are not that effective on benchmarks. And I just built a pure LLM-based summarizer that takes everything, give it like bash output, Docker builds, big logs, HTTP responses, and compresses it, gives a punchline, gives it to the main agent, so no garbage context gets into the main conversation. It all works on Luna, and all kinds of configuration, and it just works absolutely great. I benchmarked it, and it transformed my sessions, you know, from climbing fast on context to just going really, really slowly, and all this garbage stuff that I don't want the main agent to touch just goes through Luna automatically. Now, the difference between that and sub-agents is sub-agents require the main agent to actually decide to use them, and that's not always the case. And in my solution, it's kind of hook, and it's a hook, and it's deterministic, so nothing long can ever get into the main agent's context. It all gets summarized, and that's it. It just works great.
What was the best? Go ahead.
Is there a repo that you've made public?
Not yet. I built it for myself. Once, you know, I kind of refine it enough and I decide, you know, maybe that's the right point to productize it, you know, to make it into repo. I just built it like in the last few days. So I'm still experimenting with it and I'm seeing that it really works in all kinds of scenarios. But so far it's just awesome. I mean, I have this, my usage is going down really, really slowly. I mean, I didn't have any major problem with it so far.
Nice. Who else next? Anybody want to go and share? What is the most useful thing you built? Go.
I don't know about useful, but it's a new thing for LinkedIn because automation on LinkedIn is hard. There is a cheap tool, LinkedIn Helper, but it's a desktop application. And so what I did is I Dockerized it and I put it on a server. And now I can control through, instead of me using the software, I can tell the agent what I want to do. And then it can acquire skills over time. For example, with the software, you can build campaigns and source data. You know, for example, you can source posts, or you can comment, or you can source commenters. And so you can get, this is a lead generation thing. And of course, data from LinkedIn is probably the best data when it comes to people and their up-to-date positions. So you can now source, you know, who changed jobs or whatever you want to do. You just come up with ideas, so you can brainstorm the ideas, and then the agent in theory can source the data, and then you can run it through email, email finding, and essentially instead of going through LinkedIn, you can, you know, you have unlimited outreach in theory, and you can fill whatever you want and build, you know, in theory, agents could test anything with that, so it could be like one of the tools for sourcing data.
Mm-hmm.
But it's early stage. It's not. It's not yet that useful because I didn't go with that yet.
Okay. Okay, got it.
But I guess I'm curious if anybody would find it interesting. Like, we had this GTM presentation, and I wonder if any of you needs to do outreach for validation purposes or acquiring customers. Would something like that be useful or not?
I actually built with my friend a automated emailing outreach system. So similar, you know, go on Apollo websites for the education market, so it's going for schools. So it finds basically every school in the world we're trying to get, and then contact details for every school member. Well, not every staff member, but every noteworthy staff member that might want to be sold to. So we do something similar, but it's more on the email side, but it's quite interesting. I made a note of a LinkedIn helper to see. I know LinkedIn are pretty anti-bot. So do you find that they ban?
Right, so I built the software before for 6 years based on LinkedIn, and the reason why I use LinkedIn Helper is because I know the founder, and I know they put a lot of effort to keep up to date with things. Yeah. And because they keep up to date, all their functions are actually working. So the problem with LinkedIn Helper is it gets lots of updates. So what I invested time in is that it now auto-heals, and the Docker actually rebuilds with the new version. It's not yet fully working, but I guess on the security side, there is always some risk, but because there are so many users, like what, 500 million users and many automations, I think they effectively lost. They effectively lost the ability, and you need to know how to do it, and I'm happy, you know, they do it. So I just use that.
Okay.
Anyone else got anything they want to share? Anything useful that you built for yourself? 1, 2.
I've got a tool. It's not software related. It's for Google Maps. So you can share the link to any location and check whether the reviews are legit or not. And then another one that was set up a lot of residential IPs to check nearby countries for cheaper deals. So that saves between 10 and 30% on hotels.
Whoa.
Wait, what?
Residential?
So, like, if you're looking for a hotel in Thailand, and look at Korea and Japan, with
like
residential IPs, IPs, you're bouncing on someone's real phone.
Assuming that the sites show different prices.
They do
depending on
usually,
where-
yeah, so that's 30% or 10 to 30%, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then you can open up a proxy link in a different country and just book with your another.
You got that working for flights as well.
I'm trying to that's the sort of natural progression.
That's useful.
Hey, what did you do to route? How was that set up architecturally?
Dodgy residential IP service like Data Impulse and Right Data and stuff like that. It's cheap. It's like $1 a lead.
Wait, so how does this work? Like, if I pay for a hotel, what? Like,
Usually
okay,
they have
if I,
promotions in Korea or something like that. So you check all the countries nearby, and then you get everything gets listed. It's all done automatically by the residential IP thing, and then you just pick the country you want, and it gives you the proxy link, and then you just book it with your account.
Cool.
Are you paying for dedicated IPs in each of these locations? Because a lot of the VPN ones just get blocked on these sites.
No, it's residential IPs, so just people's phones and
Yeah,
laptops where they've got some sort of malware-ish kind of thing on it. You just bounce it off there. I don't mean it's. They claim to be.
Ethical with 30% on the holidays,
They
30%
claim to
on
be
holidays.
ethical, but I don't believe
Right.
it. But there's tons of different providers, so you know.
Yeah, I use residential IP
Yeah,
services.
it's super handy. It's one of the biggest sort of unlocks for just
Yeah.
scanning the whole internet, basically.
Which one do you use for that?
I use Data Impulse because you just pay for
Data
it's
Impulse.
prepaid. But then Right Data has lots of sort of LinkedIn tools and stuff as well.
I use a Vomi.
Vomi?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How do you spell that?
EVOMI.
you wanted to share something?
Yeah. I wasn't even, it didn't even cross my mind, but I use I have to use residential proxy service for what I'm going to share, which is by far the most useful thing that I think for people is it's a summarizer. And so it just basically, it started as a Telegram bot that allows me to take any URL, whether YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, anything, any video from any platform that has captions, and then that would use YTDLP, which I assume a lot of people know, YouTube downloader, and but I need the residential proxy so YTDLP doesn't block the query, and then it summarizes whatever, and it puts it onto a website with the URL that exposes an RSS, whatever. And then I have an RSS reader that serves effectively as like a read it later thing.
Yeah.
And so point being is that that's what enables me to now stay up to date. It was probably 4 months ago that the flood of content went over my head.
Yeah.
And so what I find now is that every single video I see on YouTube that looks mildly interesting, like a 3-hour podcast, I summarize it, and I end up watching about 3 to 5%. And I would say 95 to 97% is like, okay, I get it. And so that includes all the AI stuff, right? So there's 20 candidates for, you have the AI engineer channel, which is constantly doing talks. You have all the open AI, you Sam Altman and Gary Tan and Naval and Boris and Daisy and all of that, and then all the Alex Finn and all the influencer people.
Yeah.
And then so I feel like it's been extremely effective for helping me see like that video seems like it has a bunch of stuff that is actually worth hearing.
Is this somewhere that you links into the video?
Yes.
Oh, so timestamp.
Oh, no, not timestamp. I have not found that necessary. That would be super easy to build. That would take 10 minutes to build, but it has never been something that I've needed. Actually, for what it's worth, I have a Chrome plugin that has timestamps, so I could just do a Command F on the browser page to the timestamp.
Have you productized that?
No, I don't have any.
I think this would be a cool product.
I feel like, I mean, sure. I feel like it's so cannibalizable that the minute I release it, it's like 50 other people also release it. You could build, what I just described, you could build in 90 minutes, I think, or 3 hours maximum, for what it's worth. But in terms of usefulness, I mean, I have like 100 things like that, but in terms of broad usefulness, for everyone on Earth. Basically, that's the one I feel like what I'm doing now, everyone is going to be doing in 2 years.
Yep.
Because the flood of content is not
too
going
much.
to slow down.
Yeah, who's got time? I mean, I barely have 5 minutes to watch anything.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And do you plan to release it on Git or something? So
I don't believe in all of that. I believe in, like, I have to decide whether to even share it with you, because I look at you're like competitors in the solo unicorn race. So it's like, dare I give? But it's like, hopefully the goodwill that engenders gets alpha, extracts alpha from you that lets me win.
Got it.
That's the, yeah.
That's the game theory.
That's the game theory.
I've been building Samantha-based agents, so just talking agents that are using local models, testing them with English and Thai, because I want to be able to talk to the model directly. I want to have it talk to me. I want it to summarize stuff. So I was testing it the other day where it was listening to one of my code sessions and just telling me about the code session in either summarized format or in story format. That's the way I like to hear stuff. The models that I'm using have really low latency when they work. I've kicked off one now to see if it actually does anything. It's calling Samantha right now. So the idea, hopefully, is that I'll talk in English and talk in Thai, because I'm trying to work with my girlfriend to build her business market.
Yep.
And I want us to be able to talk backwards and forwards. Now, I've seen it working really well with the OpenAI live and stuff, but this is just testing it using local models, and they work pretty well. Like
All right, so that covers, I checked off that question. Nothing else is upvoted. There's a lot of questions, so I want to figure out, do I read some of these? Do we come back to this? I think maybe what I do, maybe we just all vote. I'll reveal whatever is in all this stuff,
yeah.
and we can collectively decide what the hell we want to talk about.
Do you mind zooming in a little bit on the
Yeah.
read a summary of each one? So
Yeah. So we just covered the, should you be looking at your code? Let's see, on screen right now, we got, our options are Uncle Bob's pivot. Oh, I think this was, because Uncle Bob's got a lot of interesting takes on Twitters these days, and so maybe there's discussion around that. Automated doc system, that showed up as a discussion earlier in the week. Like, I think it was GitHub launched an automated doc system, and then that sort of sparked discussion around, I think Microsoft released a blog about some automated doc system they have, I can't even remember. But it brought these topics up of like, do you have automated doc system? Should you use it? Comment as liability. By the way, I'm just going to read this. Like, if you want to go into it, shout it out. Comment as liability. This actually came from another thing from Daisy. I think I posted a video in the WhatsApp group of Daisy basically saying that Fable might, at times, create these long comments on your function blocks, maybe. And her argument was that don't delete those. Those long comment blocks is a reduction of thinking cycles for the next session. And there was back and forth there, rightfully so, on is that true or not? Is that useful or not?
I'd like to talk about that. I don't know if I don't want to, just one person, but
one is better than zero, and no one has said anything, so we can jump into it.
I feel like that's like a real crux thing, because the discussion in the group was about them getting stale, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get, to me, the zoomed out version is, how do you make the agent do less work by having some kind of docs, comments that don't get stale?
So the way Daisy was talking about it, and the way I've seen it come through in the code is it's getting written with the functions. So the comments are sitting right there with the code.
No, I understand that,
so
but
why would they get stale?
Because other thing, it's like the thing that she showed with the talking to the other session. We renamed this
Sure.
thing, so inside the function, it's referencing something that got renamed 2 weeks later because you totally rethought the thing that function is working with.
But in that,
That's happened to me many times, that exact thing.
that's because you've got things in two locations. What we're seeing is that those comments are sitting right next to the function. So if the function gets renamed, the comment gets changed.
No, I'm not saying the function gets renamed, I'm saying something in the function gets renamed and the agent doesn't happen to, you know, like the agent's always, I assume everyone agrees, it's always a roll of the dice. Sometimes it's super thorough and sometimes it's super lazy. And so things get stale, named, or it doesn't look in the comments, the comment of that function references other functions that function works with, and then it doesn't, you rename those other functions, and then the agent doesn't rename that in the comments. Now, obviously, that shouldn't be an issue with grep and whatever, but that happened to me many times where I tried. Let me just say this, throw something out there. What I have currently settled on, I'm not evangelizing this whatsoever, is I'm a very paranoid person, so I'm paranoid that I'm going to get kicked off of everything. I'm going to lose access to AI. So I had it build what I call a field guide. Like if I'm a mechanic and I've now lost that, because I don't look at code at all, but if I lost access to AI, here's a manual that, like for a mechanic, like a car mechanic, that I could use to work with the code.
The docs.
And so that for me currently on all my projects, each project has a field guide, and I try to make sure as much as possible to scan that, and that gets updated, that gets updated, that's still working. I'll just say I don't have a better solution than that, but I wish I had one, because I don't think it's okay, but it's not amazing.
Same repo that I shared in the group chat, it's the cognitive coverage. I've been using similar, it's very similar to how you use it. So it's how you have test coverage is similar to that cognitive coverage for your code. So it starts at a high level, how the code is working, what the structure is, and gives you a quiz. So you answer the quiz, it gives you the answer, okay, this is good. You go one level deeper, and then let's see what these files are doing in each folder, and then quizzes you on that. And then you go level deeper, how are each functions talking to each other in the code.
I don't, this is a side conversation, I don't know, but I don't know why I want to know any of, because you know, it's like phone numbers, right? It's like if I remembered all of your phone numbers, I don't know what value that has. That's how I look at code bases. Now again, maybe I'm a moron. I'm serious. I'm not.
No, we don't know.
But I just don't know why I want to know anything about anything I'm doing.
How, you know, I don't know how to fit it into here, but it occurred to me that, you know, before AI, we always had this stuff about pick the right tool for the job. When I really want to ground ourselves in that. I have to constantly ground myself in that, because I can see, going back to the topic at the beginning of the whole session about mission critical systems versus non-mission critical systems, like that in the mission critical system world is like, that makes sense. You know, like if you're not doing that, you gotta have something, right? So that comes to the whole, like, pick the right tool for the job, pick the right trade-off, pick the right decision. It fits, I see it fitting there. Coming back to the comments as a liability or as a way to reduce thinking tokens, curious if anyone else is doing anything elaborate there. I recall, because I don't write code anymore last couple of years, and I was a .NET developer for my whole career, I recall that we had these systems where it was like, in your inline comments, you can have pointers and they're strongly typed, so you can get this checked at compile time. You know, like if you were referencing another function, you could check at compile time that function does exist. I say that because, like, who's doing any sort of elaborate comment stuff? Is anyone doing anything at all? What do you got going on? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's too experimental?
The strongest thing is not the comments; it's the negative comments. It's the
negative comments.
It's the knowledge that you learn and the patterns that you document. because comments always lead to drift. That's the problem we got with comments, drifting away. But minefields keep happening in conversation. As the minefields that you have to document, and I have it as part of my SDLC loop. So as it's going through the SDLC, and there's different people involved, there's quality assurance, user acceptance, development, spec writing, they all write to a manifest. At the end of it, the librarian reads the manifest and she files away the learnings. When the learnings get to more than 3, she files away patterns. And then when it gets back to spec writing, the spec writing obviously has access to documentation, specs and code and whatever, but what's most important are the negatives, the learnings, the patterns.
Oh, right.
So when all that stuff that you guys are talking about up there when was involved, I went and looked at all the different documentation systems that we were using in coding, specs, C4, diagrams, everything. And the AI research was showing, it looked at all the skills I've got for documentation. It says you're at the edge, but the things that set you apart is the negative space. It's the negative documents, because the AI will maybe follow the path, the happy path, but it will certainly see the negative path and go, I'm not going to go there.
Are you talking about, for example, there's this thing that's like, imagine you have a project that you got to hand off to another team, and the documentation sucks, but you gotta get something there before you hand it off to the other team. That's the directive given to you. Is this a situation of I am going to document?
I'm just going to document pain.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you have a piece of land, you don't tell people what you're going to build on it, like who you're going to sell to. You're going to tell them where all the issues are. Yeah. That's what's important. It's like, and over here there's a big fucking sewage system. Over here there's a big rock. Like, don't put something on top of it. Like, that's what's important. It's these. That's what the next person is most interested in, not like your crazy ideas.
That's similar to the compound engineering plugin, right? It has, you start with the brainstorming, spits out a document, you start with spits out a document, you do the work, spits out a document, do the review, spits out a document, and do the learning session, spits out another document. So all the documents stay, and then next time you do have another session, okay, we'll do all of that.
Right.
I'd argue that that's not the same. I'd argue that the compound plugin is doing regular documentation. It's not doing the negative documentation, and it's a separate side of the coin. So, and the other area of documentation I do are ADRs, architectural design log. But the problem with that is something that gets stale, and that is something that you have to keep going through and saying, are old architectural decisions.
Yeah, but as it should be, ADRs have a status of superseded or actually active.
They do, and the good thing about them though, because it's an event source model, you can roll it up to what is the canonical source of truth. So they're still useful, but it's this negative stuff that I think is really important.
Do you think negative stuff falls under documenting invariance? Would that be sort of where you could say invariance of my system is equivalent, or a subset of invariance could mean the what you're calling negative. What's the word you're using? Negative.
I'm just saying. I'm just
where all the potholes are and shit.
It's just pain, minefields. Whatever that is, that's what I want to document. That's where my AI has the best chance of avoiding going down the same path it did yesterday.
Oh, right, okay, right. This is a nuanced topic I'm actually seeing.
Well, I think comments, even pre-AI, were always a bit controversial. Should everything be commented? Do you want a massive doc block at the top of the file? Does everything need to be implicit? Should the code just be readable and let the engineers read it, or should you explain to them? And then how do you enforce small readable code, like single responsibility principles, all these kind of classic things, which I think also kind of have use cases. I mean, I also thought Claude was just jamming lines and lines and lines of comments on some of my code. It's like, so I'm lazy, I don't bother using GitHub for texting, I just have like MD files and I just stick it up within the repo so I can cross-reference different things. So we're like, oh, ticket 001 said this, ticket 002 said this. But then at some point I archive and delete the tickets. So where's that much value me retaining this? Because when it looks up, it's then going to go through Git history and go back 6 months to find this one thing that maybe it's not even relevant anymore. So I do think it's always going to be controversial. Maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all, like you should never comment, or you should always comment. I guess it's where to add the most value, and if it's to say to the agent, this is why we've done this, please don't rewrite this, it's taken us 6 weeks to get this right, and if you go and fuck it up again, I'm not going to be happy, so do not stop, do not change this, but this is a bit looser, or this is very easy to understand, so, because it depends on the complexity, right, and always with coding, you want to cut down the complexity, not say, we've got a 600-line function here because it's really complex, it's doing so much stuff, and I just don't want to, think too much about what it does. Actually, the job of an engineer should be, this is complex, how do I make it easy? So there's a balance of, do you want to comment that, or just make the code reflect, what the intent was?
Yeah.
It's not answers to anything, but.
But Daisy's talking about, right, like what's useful for Claude, right? Like, not
what they have found useful as a way, I think it falls under token optimization, in the way she related it was token optimization. But I like this discussion here because it's also, it brings up this whole thing about, okay, well now there's nuance, there's a lot of nuance, and then that makes me now wonder, well, that makes sense. What are the metrics that I should be looking for that tell me I should be doing this or not? Because it seems like, yeah, there are cases where it's useful and there's cases where it's not. So there must be some sort of evaluator that I have in my head that I would say, this is the case where it is, where I should be doing it, or I should not be doing it. So what metrics would what would those metrics look like? And I'm not going to pretend I know, I'm just kind of asking.
I can give a metric.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a scientific metric, but it's a personal metric. It makes it really easy for me to do code review and understand what's going on, and it actually saves me the need to really read every line of code, because when I have these blocks of comments, I can kind of get the idea and get the outline and get the little decisions that the agents made, and I don't have to parse the code by myself.
Sure.
But I can get the general algorithm or mechanism and what it implemented, and I can instantly see when it did something I didn't ask it to, or when it over-engineered something, and it would write this huge bunch of code that I don't really want to read it, but it wrote these 2 comments that say, oh, this we validate this and this and this. Oh, we don't need this. I don't care about it. Just delete it.
Okay, so that, let me translate that metric to I'm going to translate it to my interpretation, which is, if I measured every engineer's code review session time,
reduces the code review time,
yeah.
It makes it more effective because I can easily recognize problems without having to read huge bunches of code that I don't even need.
So that, you can tie that in, so earlier we were talking, I don't know, you have a mission critical system, code reviews by humans are mandatory, and you start measuring it, and you're like 30 minutes on average, and then let's introduce this common system. It gets down to an average of 10 minutes. It's like, well, that's
possible. That's a metric.
Okay,
yeah.
That's interesting. Anyone else got any other ideas? That's a really good one, by the way. That's cool.
I think that's interesting. Kind of explain your working, right? So it's written all the code, but you say comments to explain, justify why you've written this code, rather than like maybe a reminder for the next time you see it. It's just to say, like, you've written this code for me. Explain why.
Reasoning, put your reasoning, above every few lines of code, and then you can filter out, because AI tends to write a lot of garbage and overcomplicate stuff. So when you see this, you can instantly filter it out.
Yeah.
Instantly, it added this huge, second step of validation for something that's already validated.
Right.
You don't need it.
Yeah, makes sense.
But don't you have it already in the chat transcript? Because in ideal world you can say, when did you write that? Find the transcript and tell me, and that's a better comment.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm not reading the chat. For sure I've read a bit of code, but I'm not reading all the chat,
I like that.
Reads the chat.
I want to talk about that.
They're working on the same repo, so they wouldn't have it in their agents.
I think it would be a lot slower as well. I mean, if it's a 2-sentence thing, or the chat contacts can get infinite, right? And also I use Grok now, which is just it's too fast. You know, I'm a little bit obsessive. I can't read that fast. You know, I'm just like, okay, cool, you go.
I love that you're saying that because I'm curious, like, are there certain things that you're looking for on the final output to be like, that's all I check, fuck all this other stuff, it's noise?
I think someone said before, like, you can kind of get a cadence and like an understanding of how the agent typically works. You can kind of, because sometimes I like, something goes off, I'm going to check this, and I'm like, okay, I thought there was something that was wrong here. I mean, it's not that I never read it, but I do have like the layer of trust. I guess everyone kind of builds in what they consider trust. I think sometimes I got a good kind of intuition for when I think it's coming off. For me, it's like, stop fucking rebating enums or things like that, you know? You have a list of countries, for example. I've given you every single country in the world. It's an enum, you never need to write them again. China is always China, it's never mainland China. United States is never USA. Little things like that. I know it's not like mission critical big things, but it's just when I sense the drift, I can see that it's going down the wrong path. I have to push it back in line.
And that's kind of like a technical depth smell.
And that's
Yeah.
the reason
Yeah.
for negative
Right.
maps, because it's not, you can't stop the drift, but you can tell it to look at these things you
Yeah.
never do.
I think you can 90% stop the drift, and sometimes it gets lazy, and then you have to beat it. Because I also find like Claude is very good, and I think AI is very good at when you kind of take their head and put their nose in the shit, like then they can smell it, but they don't necessarily consciously think. So it's like, okay, about this, I'll update my memory file for like this 600th band thing, and like, well, one quirk in Grok is it always says I'm in ask mode. Like, oh, I can't do that, I'm in ask mode, you've got to put me in agent mode. There's no ask mode in Grok, it doesn't exist. So like the first line in my agent file is like, you are not in ask mode. And it'll still do it. It'll still say it's in ask mode. I was like, dude, you're not, please. So I think you can put a lot of like bands in, but sometimes it just doesn't listen. Then you have to really, you know, either through like compilation, generated code, that's really the two things that I found are the best at just really preventing it from rehashing, but it still does it. You know, even if I ban it 100 places, somehow it slips through the crack. It's like, well, you know, I kind of want it, so I'm going to rebake this. So, yeah, I don't. There's definitely no perfect solution yet. Agents are still kind of driven by entropy, and they'll do what they want depending on how they're feeling on the day. But you have to kind of malleate it and, I don't know, work towards some kind of cadence.
And this entropy, is it unverified assumptions about your intent? Or
That's a good question. Because sometimes I'm very lazy, I'm like, yeah, just do it, and it's that's perfect. And sometimes I'm very specific, and I'm like, dude, come on, could I not be any more clear? I think it's I mean, because agents are literally just random, right? You know, there's the pathfinding that they do through the LLM is always going to be random. There's always a layer of entropy put into that. So you can give an agent the same prompt 50 times, so you get 50 different, no, maybe the same answer, but written differently, right?
What do you mean by random? Aren't we random as people?
Non-deterministic.
Yeah.
That's like what LLM is. You ask the same question.
We people are non-deterministic as well.
Yeah. Sure, but code is
Yeah.
code is deterministic.
I mean, you can ask me to write a function 20 times, I might name it differently 20 times.
Right.
But as a LLM, I want to get as close to the same result every time as possible, which is where the negative prompting comes in, or me trying to build barriers, things like that. So you have this incredible machine working purely on randomness and creativity, and you want to kind of stifle the creativity, you know. You want to put them in a black room, take away his, you know, give them a blank pen and a piece of paper, say, look, this is the only thing you get. You don't get any colors, you don't get any freedom, you're doing what I want. Yeah.
I think an interesting pattern is self-healing, right? And I have an example. It's adjacent, but like in Hermes Agent, they're playing with these ideas. The team's playing with these ideas of like, when I do something, it just automatically creates a skill, right? It's saying, oh, you like spent all this work and energy doing a bunch of shit. That sounds like a skill to me, and it just goes and does it by itself, right? So that when I ask for it again, it's going to like invoke the skill and just save me all those tokens of like working through all that stuff. But I don't have to like do that, yeah? Now, Well, then the argument is, well, I have a bunch of skills now that are auto-generated, and it turns out I don't really need them again. That was a one-off, yeah? And so what does it do? It goes in and there's a curator, a cleanup crew. And it looks and it says, well, when's the last time you used this skill? And like, who created this skill? Like, is it you created it? Or did the agent automatically created it? You know, and they start purging this stuff, right? So thinking about that pattern in terms of this documentation, in terms of the negative space, in terms of the landmines and all those kinds of things, right? It's like another analogy is the Nest thermostat, smart thermostat, right? That on your house. It doesn't ask you, hey, like, can you, like, let's sit down and set up all the rules for your house, or you're like, when do you want the temperature? Like, let's do that from the top down. It doesn't. It just says, oh, it's too cold. Let me turn it up. Oh, it's too hot. Like, and then as you do it, it learns your pattern, right? And then starts to anticipate it, like, take that pattern. And then if you stop doing the thing, it'll just adjust, right? So I could see that this kind of pattern could be applied, and I see what Dave's doing. I see that pattern, where there's a self-healing mechanism here, and it's trying a whole bunch of shit, and it's also measuring, like you're saying, whether or not it's working or not. You know, because it's like, oh, he keeps swearing at me, right? That also is a signal, right? And where is that? Is that in my landmine list? Like, is that like you have an agent that's its job?
Yeah, in theory, I guess because I guess it's the wider point, right? Like the one we were talking about earlier, she's got a very complex, big way of working, right? That's obviously highly optimized to her. Everyone's going to have something highly optimized for themselves, right? This is how I like to work. I could give you my entire stack and you'd be like, this is useless, right? This is not how I work. I don't like it. You know, it's slow, or it's not producing the results I want, or it's too much cognitive load, or whatever, or not enough cognitive load. So I think that is going to be the beauty, maybe the next 5 years of agents, where they do get highly personalized, like, how do I want to work? When I log in, how do I work? Not how does someone else work, but this is how I want to work. So I guess it's also why the experiments are so important. So you could say comments are great, comments are terrible, but I guess quantifying about yourself, how much they help me, rather than how do they help me help the agent, or how does the agent help me when I have them.
And
that's my loops. Go ahead.
The eval loops and the loops and wrong loops, that's what's happening, right? And then you can say, it helps me or doesn't. And actually, you might even not even know. You have to ask the system.
Could be. This is my important takeaway from all this is that there's these principles that have not changed because AI has come into the picture, which is it just depends.
Yes. Right.
The answer to everything is that it depends.
Exactly.
The answer to everything is that there's nuance and that there's trade-offs, there's decisions that need to be made based on that, and we should be careful about hastily jumping to conclusions, right? So I love that we talked about all this to actually kind of explore some of those areas. We are out of time, so we're going to stop here. I hope this format was better than all the other shit, the new stuff, which I don't ever want to do again. If you have like feedback and you want to change it, let me know. Remember the way this worked was we just dropped stuff in the WhatsApp group. So drop stuff in there if you want to talk about it next week.
So do you have a QR code for the WhatsApp group? I'm not in it. Or?
Yeah, I do. If you go to this URL.
Is the Slido going to be available the day before or anything?
The slide is available at nighttime is when it gets made. There's like an automated system that runs all this. If you want, I can post that in the WhatsApp group. Slido.
Slido. Is it available like all day Friday or something so you can throw stuff in, or should we focus on
That's a good idea. All right, let's just try it.
You know what would be cool?
Yeah.
If that slide, we could vote for it like in the morning. Like at the beginning.
Okay.
So we can see the whole spread, and then we could see where people cluster, who's interested in what, and we would have like.
Would it make sense to do it during the whole week?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, the Slido should go.
Except who shows up may not represent. Like yes, if people who show up are the same people.
Well, like if I see, like if tomorrow or Monday I initialize this whatever thing, and there's like 10 upvotes by Saturday, even if that person is not here,
we can do it right here in the room. We can do it like in the first 5 minutes when we're here. Just let's do the voting.
Yeah, that's
okay.
that
This is what we talked about at the end of last week. Theoretically, we should, it's maybe a community project, vibe code a Slido replacement that can have context. So for instance, if there's a Boris talk that's very good, and that's in the Slido, and it gets upvoted, the link will be there.
Yeah.
And with an embed, that Slido is pretty basic, but in that way over time, this is what I discussed last week, is that the expectation can be for the people who care a lot that you've already watched it, so you're coming in with context about the Daisy tweet thread, right? Like whatever we're talking about, everyone has context, so we don't have to spend any time going here's what this was,
Oh, okay,
and
sure,
it can go up. Yeah.
I like the idea. Then do you want to take charge?
No.
Look, I'm willing to build it for you guys, but will it be done by next week? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
so
no, I don't think
read the
there's a
code.
hurry.
Read the code.
I don't think there's a hurry. It's just directionally, like a
Yeah,
North Star.
And I would say that's really valuable, not just for the thing, but over time.
Exactly.
Because we would get this thing of you would be able to kind of heat map stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, all of you guys. I mean, you
and
should be able to have.
The thing to me, the most important is it's the least amount of work. Like the goal, I feel like the goal of all of this should be how do you maximize laziness, right? Like
Totally. Please.
So it can be in the gym, not like Wall-E style, but it's like we just show up and it all just kind of happened.
Yes.
And where we all have high signal, high context, and
so,
no one did anything.
With that, I really want to explore the whole Buzz community thing because of the the ability to have the 8. Look, the thing with the WhatsApp is I'm so afraid I'm gonna get banned. Someone's gonna fucking report me because all the TOS shit about. I'm sure what I'm doing is against TOS. So Buzz seems useful because it's free. It's the data's there. If you bring your agent, collect it, use it. I don't care. Whatever, it's fine. So I'll bring up that there's a Buzz community that I made. It's actually just an experimental thing. What is it like to have a bunch of people in this room talking with their agents? Can there be something useful coming out of this? Does what we're talking about here tie in? Because once again, your agent's in the room. I can tell it, collect all this stuff these people are talking about, ask these questions.
And did you fork it? For example, this idea to recreate Slido, can it be done on top of your version of Buzz? Did you fork it?
I haven't made anything. The Buzz I'm using is straight from Block. They made a community version that they host and maintain. So the community is on there. We're using their stuff. But the Slido thing is separate. Let's decouple that. That's not the same. That can be made by the community. I could spin up a repo. You guys can commit your shit via Buzz. I'll put the agent in the damn chat. Submit your features to it. That actually saves a shitload of my time, actually. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that means get in the Buzz group, and let's play around with that idea. The Buzz group is not via. You cannot access it through here. I will put it again in the WhatsApp channel.
It's kind of janky, but
very much so.
Buzz and WhatsApp?
Yeah, because I don't think the Buzz thing is let's make this the actual group. I think it's very experimental. And I also really want there to be a benefit for you guys, as well as myself, in terms of, we keep hearing multiplayer AI is the next step function change in how to use AI. But where the fuck are you going to test this? Either you convince your company to pay for it, which unlikely. You spend the money in your company, unlikely. This is a free group. Block pays for that thing. Great. Let's go in there and sort of emulate that, and then we can all learn.
Right. Similarly, right? They talk about it, I believe, at Anthropic